right, this is for 11.4 on the area of parallelograms. I believe that we talked about parallelograms in chapter 10 when we did quadrilaterals. Maybe that, yes, I think that's when that was. And you should remember that a parallelogram is a four-sided polygon with two pairs of parallel sides. I think this lesson is probably the easiest one in chapter 11. There's a couple of little tricks that you have to know or you'll mess up every time, and I'll get to those pretty quickly here. So here's a formula. When you're finding the area, here's where we use an uppercase A. This is one reason why I've told you in the past not to use uppercase letters as variables, because an uppercase A means area. And the area, how to find the area of a parallelogram is this formula, B times H. B stands for base, and height stands for how tall it is. I mean, H stands for height. That's what I meant to say. Okay, so if you look on page 594, it says the base of a parallelogram is the length of any one of the sides. Now, in this one that I've drawn, the easiest base to find is the one that's parallel to the ground, okay? The one that's horizontal, okay? Now, here comes the trick. The height of a parallelogram is the perpendicular, and you should remember that. That's the sign for perpendicular. Perpendicular line forms right angles with the line it intersects with. And that's the trick. Okay, and I'll keep referring back to this as we go through the lesson. So the height of a parallelogram is the perpendicular distance between the side whose length is the base and the opposite side. So let me show you how this gets confusing. If I tell you that the base of this parallelogram is 10 centimeters and I tell you that the height is 6 centimeters and you're in a hurry, and so you just put a 6 over here and then you do base times height, and you say, oh, well, that one is 60 centimeters squared. That was so easy. You are wrong, okay? Now, actually, that is the right answer because I told you what the height was, okay? If you saw it written this way, and the book will write it like this because they want to trick you. They want to make sure that you know what you're doing. If you were given this information just like this in the book, you could not find the area of the parallelogram because they are not telling you the height. And why can I say that? Because this diagonal line is not perpendicular to the base. It is not telling you the height. It's telling you the length of this side, okay? So you have to see the little rectangle that shows right angle. That's how you know that the line where height is perpendicular to the base. Now you might be saying, wait, you drew it up to the top. Okay, instead I could have done it here, but either way is fine because these two lines are parallel. Okay, so if this one is 10 centimeters, this is also 10 centimeters, okay? Now, I can tell, I'm gonna guess that this would be about 5. It's not as long as this diagonal line over here. And so now, if you were given this amount of information, which is really kind of overwhelming, you could figure out that the area of this parallelogram is actually 50 centimeters squared, okay? So that's the trick. This is the most important thing you will learn in this lesson. The height has to be perpendicular to the base. Now I'm going to draw a different kind of parallelogram so that you get used to seeing it in different ways, okay? So I'm looking at one in the book and trying to figure out how to, I'm gonna have to redraw it. I'll come back to that in a second. I want you to be able to see them vertically and horizontally. So, but I'll come back because I'm not very good at making up problems. So we get to guided practice. There's an example there that will help you. All right. Believe it or not, you have enough information to solve guided practice 1, 2, and 3, as long as you remember the formula. Area of a parallelogram is base times height. So if you want to pause it, just multiply those two answers out, the two numbers out in 1, 2, and 3 on page 595, and then come back. I'm just going to quickly work out the math. I'm not going to draw any parallelograms because you weren't given any in the book. All right, for number 1, you should multiply base times height, 8 times 11, and you would know that the area of that parallelogram is 88 inches squared. For number 2, you just multiply 9.3 to 7. And without a calculator, you would get 65.1, and we're in meters this time, so meters squared. And then for number 3, you would multiply 3.25 times 12. And the answer should be 39 feet squared. Okay, those are 3 pretty easy ones. I am going to work out number 4 and probably 5 and 6. Now, if you think that you can do them, pause the video, maybe after 4, maybe before 4, but work those out as you feel comfortable and then turn the video back on when you need to check or assistance, okay? Okay, so number 4 was the one I was referring to a minute ago. It has the parallelogram drawn differently, okay? And it's actually kind of going off like this. They're still going to have the base at the bottom, which is what you will usually see. But this is what's drawn in the book for the height. You have a red line sticking off here. Now, and then you're told it's 8 inches, okay? The reason that this whole little thing is here is because they wanted to put the perpendicular, remember that's the key, it has to be perpendicular, and they wanted to show that height line, the perpendicular line, out here. So you can imagine that this line's being extended, and so where it comes in here and where it comes in down here is perpendicular. Why they didn't just go up here and put it, I don't know. Either way, it's 8 inches, okay? Now, the other trick to this one is that they're telling you the area, and we haven't done one of these in this lesson. We have done them in the past, so I think you know what to do, but I am going to work this one out for you. So again, you're going to plug in what you know. We know the area. It's 56 inches squared. And what does it equal? Base times height. We don't know the base, okay, but we know the height. Now that looks weird, so I would rewrite it into something that you're used to seeing, a coefficient and next to a variable. I want to get my variable alone, so I divide both sides by 8, and I would find that b equals 7. Whoops, I put the 7 again. Equals 7 inches. Okay? That's how that one is done. If you want to pause it now and do 4 and 5, that would be good. I'm sorry, 5 and 6. Okay, I'm just going to give you the answers to 5 and 6 because I want to use the last 5 minutes of this video to go over one of the homework problems. And there will not be a part 2 to this because this, as I said earlier, this is the easiest lesson in the chapter. All right, so if you worked out number 5, I always forget to put the pin on, you should have gotten 8 millimeters. And if you did number 6, you should have gotten 6 centimeters. That's how you do those. That's the answer to those two. If you need a little bit more help, feel free to email me. I don't mind going over some of this with you individually. But number 25, the last one, I believe, yes, in your homework. I put a little note on RenWeb that you only have to follow the first part of the directions. And the reason is they didn't give you the full length of the parallelogram if you'll look over at the top of 598. So we're only going to do the first part. I'm going to do it here with you if you stick with me for the whole video. It says, the figures are from the sculpture at the right. Approximate the height of the rhombus. That's all you have to do, okay? And we talked about rhombus before, still a parallelogram. Let me sketch it out here for you. Doesn't look exactly like theirs. When they came down, they only gave you this side of the base. So I'm sure there's a way to solve, but I'm not positive of what it is, and I don't think that you're ready for that. And so you didn't have to do that part. So you only have to figure out what the height is. I'm going to put a little pause in here to have you know how to find the height. So what are we going to do? We are looking for the leg of a triangle. Don't worry about it being a rhombus right now, okay? How do we find the height, which is the leg of this triangle? We use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. All right, we know A is 2.06. We're going to square it. Plus B squared equals 2.75 squared. Now I have a piece of excellent good news for you. I have just emailed Miss Winfrey and I said, since you had to get through the first half of this chapter without a calculator, would it be okay if you used a calculator in the last half? And she said yes. However, we both agreed that you do have to memorize all of the formulas that fall in the last half. There are many. So if I were you, I would have a little index card. I would write them down. I would quiz myself each day because next Wednesday, tentatively, you will take a quiz on all of these areas as well as the circumference of a circle. So you have to know those formulas. You cannot refer to a guide or a cheat sheet when you take the quiz. So the compromise is you may use a calculator on the last quiz or test, but you may not have a paper with the formulas written out on them. All right, so moving over to my calculator, I get to use it too, see? 2.06 times 2.06 is 4.24 plus B squared equals 2.75 times 2.75, 7.56, which I will then subtract from that 4.24, and I will get approximately, I rounded at one point, you might not have, 3.32. And then technically, you should probably approximate the square root by yourself, but since I'm not going to tell you how to do that part on the calculator, so that's up to you. Heck, you're here listening to me, so you don't even have to do this one if you just write down my answer that I'm about to tell you. When you find the square root of 3.322, it comes to about 1.8. And that's where you can end that problem. The book actually went to the hundredths place, but you don't know how to do that. So that's how you find the height of that rhombus. I'm going to end the video here. Make sure you log. This is the easiest formula to memorize because it's B times H, but you got to know that it goes with the parallelogram. They're going to get more complicated after this, so get that one in your head, and I'll check with you tomorrow on 11.5.